Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating story that's going to completely challenge how we view our own potential and our place in the world. It's a narrative about a beggar and a businessman, but as we go through this, you'll quickly realize it's actually a profound lesson on mindset, self-worth, and the fundamental laws of success. So let's just get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this with a pretty massive question. What if one single thought could change your entire destiny? Our story begins at a dusty, bustling railway station in a major city. It's one of those places where thousands of people pass through every single day, just completely absorbed in their own lives. And right there, right in the middle of all that chaos, is where a profound transformation begins.
Section 1. The Beggar's Dilemma. For a long time, this station was home to a beggar. Day in and day out, his routine was exactly the same. He'd approach passengers sitting on the trains, put his hand out, and rely entirely on their pity just to fill his stomach. It was a slow, agonizing grind, literally surviving day to day on whatever spare change strangers were willing to part with. But then, one particular day, the beggar spots someone entirely different. On one side, you have the beggar seeking handouts. On the other side, stepping off the train, is a tall man dressed sharply in a suit, visibly wealthy, just radiating success. We're talking about two completely different worlds, suddenly standing on the exact same platform. This brings us to part 2, the law of exchange. Seeing this wealthy man, the beggar's eyes instantly light up. In his mind, a guy this rich is practically a guaranteed big payday, right? So he immediately targets the businessman, walks right up to him, and extends his hand, fully expecting a generous payout. He genuinely expects this wealthy guy to just hand over some cash out of the goodness of his heart. And this brilliantly illustrates our next point, because the tall man doesn't reach for his wallet at all. Instead, he looks down at the beggar and delivers a rather harsh reality check. He asks, "You're always begging. Do you ever give anything to anyone?" The beggar, totally confused, says he has absolutely nothing to give. To which the businessman replies, "If you have nothing to give, you have no right to ask." The businessman goes on to explain that he's a merchant, and merchants believe strictly in transactions. If the beggar has nothing to offer, well, the businessman has nothing to give. And then he just boards the train and leaves. What the businessman was describing here is the law of exchange. It's this natural principle, stating that you have to offer value to the world in order to receive value in return. And let me tell you, those words absolutely pierce the beggar's heart. He was left standing there stunned, suddenly realizing he lived his entire life unable to give a single thing back to anyone. Section 3. A shift in perspective. For 2 agonizing days, the beggar just couldn't shake those words. They were echoing in his head. He realized the exact reason he didn't get much money was precisely because he offered zero value in return. But he agonized over a seemingly impossible puzzle. What could a person who owns absolutely nothing possibly offer to anybody else? Well, on the 3rd day, as he was sitting near the station, his perspective finally shifted. He looked up and noticed something he'd probably ignored 1,000 times before. There were these wildflowers blooming on the plants, growing freely right there around the station. And a brilliant idea just bloomed in his mind. Who knew a little amateur botany could be a competitive business advantage? What if he picked these free, beautiful wildflowers and offered them to the passengers in exchange for their money? He immediately put this into practice. Pick the flowers, walk up to the passengers, and exchange a bloom for a coin. And you know what? The passengers absolutely loved it. They happily accepted the beautiful flowers. Almost instantly, the beggar saw a massive increase in his daily earnings. It turns out, people are way more willing to give when they actually receive a gift in return. But then, he experienced this fascinating physical proof of the businessman's lesson. Because he was picking all the flowers around the station, his supply would eventually run out. And the very moment those flowers ran out, his income plummeted straight back to absolute zero. That zero was a profound realization. It literally proved that the give and take rule was completely real. Let's move to Section 4, the 6-month transformation. So, this new routine continued for a while. Then, one day, the tall businessman was back on the train. The beggar rushed right over to him, held out some flowers, and said, "Today I have something to give you in exchange for your alms." The businessman handed him some money, took the flowers, and smiled. He looked right at the beggar and said, "Wow, today you have become a merchant just like me." Now, what's really interesting about this is how deeply those words struck the beggar's soul. His eyes just sparkled. He realized he held the key to his own life. He jumped off the train, looked up at the sky, and yelled at the top of his lungs, "I am not a beggar. I am a businessman. I can be rich too." The people on the platform probably thought he'd completely lost his mind, but from the very next day, that beggar was never seen at that station again.
We're going to jump forward on our timeline now. 6 whole months pass. We are back at the exact same railway station, but this time, 2 wealthy men wearing sharp suits cross paths. They look at each other, and one of them extends his hand, asking, "Do you recognize me?" The second man says no, naturally assuming this is their very first meeting. But the first man smiles and reveals this incredible twist. He is the former beggar. He tells the businessman, "This is our third meeting. The first time you told me what to do. The second time you told me who I really was." He was now a massive flower merchant, literally traveling to another city just to expand his booming business.
Let's move to Section 5, the power of self-belief, and see how this all builds. The story of the beggar and the businessman isn't just some cute tale about changing careers. It's a literal masterclass in the immense power of self-belief and identity. The former beggar explained to the businessman that he was already, technically speaking, running a business by trading those flowers. The passengers weren't giving him alms anymore, they were buying his cheap flowers. But because he still had a small mindset, he viewed himself as just a beggar. He was totally trapped by his own low self-worth, focusing only on what he lacked. It wasn't until the businessman actually validated him and called him a merchant that his entire perspective shifted. The businessman simply woke up his self-respect. Because here is the truth of the matter. True transformation happens when your self-image finally catches up to your actions. The exact moment he actually believed he was a merchant, he took the money he saved, bought more flowers, and rapidly grew a massive business because the local demand for flowers was just that high. So the crucial point here is perfectly summarized in these 3 steps we've derived from the source material. Number 1, adopt the give and take law. You absolutely must offer value to receive value. Number 2, elevate your self-respect. You've got to stop viewing yourself as someone who only takes. And number 3, think big. If you think of yourself as small, you're going to remain small. You must expand your self-image if you want to reach the pinnacle of success. I want to conclude this explainer by leaving you with a pretty provocative question. What are you begging for today that you really should be trading for? Whether it's respect, a promotion, or just general success, ask yourself what value you're actually offering in return. Remember, success is hidden right there inside your mindset. Awaken your self-respect, find the value you inherently possess, and offer it to the world. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning.